Huge welcome to you ladies and welcome to the second class in this series of six on this adventure through the frequencies and the magic of the rainbow. Very big welcome to you for this particular session. So before I actually go on with what we were going to do this week, I'd like to just ask if I left you with the reading in your workbook of this overactive versus underactive chakras so that you could go through it in more detail and just get a deeper understanding of this concept of complementary colors and how to work with colors when you do measure through dowsing a chakra that is overactive versus underactive. So in the notes that you read in the workbook, is there anything, are there any questions? Were there any things that you may not have been clear on or sure of as you went through that information? Or are you feeling comfortable with what's been covered so far? You're comfortable with the information. That's great. That's really good. You've always got the workbook. Think so. Not sure that I can remember it all though. Oh, yeah. Don't worry, Susan. I mean, that's why you've actually got the workbook so that you can refer back to it so that you've got that information. And you find that with practice, because it is an inherent knowledge and wisdom that we have as beings of light, we understand the language of that light. Sort of once we become more comfortable with it, it almost becomes second nature. So you don't necessarily remember it all, but you remember one or two keywords, and that starts triggering the release of stuff and information from within you. And one of the ladies that was on one of the earlier courses, what she's finding, and this I think has been really, really wonderful, is that when she's doing readings and working with her clients, she says the information that she's getting through about them is actually very specific. So it's like she's able to almost extract and home in very specifically on what is needed and what is pertinent and relevant for them in their life at the moment, even down to things that are not perhaps even written in the workbooks. Because the whole subject of color is really vast. This is a foundational series that we are going through. So what I would actually say to you is the greater your level of trust in working with this, the more that will unfold from within you. So don't get too concerned about whether you can remember it all. As long as you've got the principle and the concept and you are at ease with that, you will find that it will unfold very naturally through the journey. So trust the journey, trust your own wisdom, trust that you will know what is actually right for each particular individual. And that's a journey in and of itself. If I can actually just say to you that, I mentioned that my original training was with Aurosoma. And I actually found as well, because of the levels of complexity with the Aurosoma system, they were working with dual colored bottles, two colors in a bottle, and they had like 100 different bottles and very specific information about the color combinations. And I used to sit there doing color readings with clients, and I would sit with my book and refer back to what was written in the workbook about particular bottles and particular colors. And one day I was sitting in front of all of these bottles with all of my kit, and there was a client there, and there was this little voice inside of me that actually said, just put the book down. Close the book and just read. Close the book and just connect with the colors. And this was many years ago now. And the client that I was actually sitting with had come with his partner, and his partner was actually sitting behind us in the room. And as I was actually talking, I found myself coming out with information about his physical state, about his emotional reactions, all without even referring to anything in the notebook. It was just amazing. I just spoke. And she was sitting behind, and I could just see her nodding her head, nodding her head. The guy that I was reading for was like poker faced and didn't move for 15 to 20 minutes while I just spoke. And at the end of 20 minutes, he just stopped. I think I paused to take a drink of water. And he turned around and he looked at me and he said, "If you had been born 300 years ago, they would have burnt you at the stake." He said, "Because I don't know how you can know those things about me through the colors." And his partner was, like I say, sitting there nodding. That's all I could see was her sitting behind us nodding her head all the time. And he didn't say a word until 20 minutes were up. And that's the beauty of it. And that was just a little nudge from my higher self, which says just go into the space, close your workbook, and just trust. And it was very powerful. It was probably, sort of one of the most powerful readings that I had done. So there's an example from my own history and my own story. And through the course of the classes, I will also share with you other little anecdotal stories about the colors and about my experiences with the colors that sort of came to light. Just through a level of connection that really triggered at the unconscious level, and then the awareness came. So hopefully you don't mind me sharing some of those stories, because I think it will help to give you also confidence in what you are doing. So I think all the time I'm going to say to you, be aware that you guys have the knowledge and the wisdom to be able to work with these, and it will give you a lot of insight. So that's great, as long as you've revised it, or sort of gone through it in the notes, and that you are comfortable enough with what you have read so far. So what we're going to do, and we start this evening, is each week we take a number of the colors in the set of 13, which is the basic sequence that we work with. So each week we're going to take a couple of those colors and we're going to explore them a little bit more deeply. Um, and we only do a couple a week because it can get a little bit exhausting. So we do that, do some other fun exercises, and allow ourselves time to become familiar and comfortable with specific frequencies. So we're going to build them up over the period of the 6 weeks, or the remaining 5 weeks that we're going to be together. So before we actually start with the first color, what I would like you to do is to make yourselves comfortable wherever you are sitting, and to close your eyes. And just begin by focusing on your breathing. As you breathe in and out, just focus on your breath, breathing in and out deep into your body, all the way down to your toes, and just release any stress or tension as you breathe out. Anything that's gone on from the day, just let it go. And as you do, and as you release from the conscious mind any interfering thoughts, you find that you create space for your nervous system, for your body to be able to interact with and to access the wisdom that you hold within the cells of your body. Because every cell in your body is encoded through your particular DNA configuration with the wisdom of the ages, with the wisdom of the ancients, with the wisdom of the ancestors who knew and worked with the magic of light as a healing modality. So as you relax, you allow those codings to be released within your body. That's it. Just breathe in and out. As you imagine yourself in this moment being connected through the timelines to the wells of ancient wisdom. And one more deep breath in, and as you open your eyes, allow the frequencies from the color on the screen to be absorbed or transmitted through your optic nerves into your nervous system so that your body registers and recognizes the frequency of this particular color. So here we have red. Just allow yourself to absorb it. And then what I'd like you to do is to type into the chat room your initial responses, the keywords that you associate immediately, that are brought to mind associated with this color. And it's always interesting to see how people respond because very often, and this I do see, is that we have sort of individuals in a group where some will connect with the more challenging aspects of the color and some will connect with the positive, supportive aspects of the color. And it's very interesting to see this, that Susan, you're connecting with one of the positive aspects or some of the positive aspects because this was your color that you worked with during the week. So we have so far anger and strength. Absolutely. And with strength is our ability to manage anger. So red can be angry outbursts. And, think about our language, as I think I've mentioned. You saw blue-green aura around it. Well, that's interesting, if I can just say very quickly, because green, let's just go to the color wheel here. Green is its complement. So there you go. You've got red here and you've got green as the complement of red. So you would, from a perspective of the light, also perceive naturally what actually harmonizes and helps to balance that particular color. Very interesting. Um, okay, so our language is naturally colored with the wisdom and the understanding of each of these frequencies anyway, because think about it in common language. What do we talk about? We talk about holding a red rag to a bull, which is the anger aspect. So there is an inherent human connection with these colors that is revealed through our emotional language. So most people do have a connection and an emotional understanding of these colors anyway. So we talk about holding a red rag to a bull. What else do we talk about in common language? We talk about the red of passion. Sort of what do we use on Valentine's Day? Red is the primary color that we use to decorate all of the Valentine's Day things, whether it be we give red roses as gifts, hopefully, or we receive them. Red roses, red bows on chocolates, all of the cards that you see in the shops are all decorated with red, wherever you look. So it's red signaling passion and excitement and vitality, all of those things. So it can, as it stimulates the root chakra, stimulate whichever of those qualities has been imbalanced or is out of balance within us, but it stirs up our innate understanding of what that energy actually brings. Now, one of the things to understand is that every single color has its challenging qualities and it has its harmonious gift qualities. So here's a little hint as well, is that whenever you are perhaps working with a client or doing a reading for them, that I would always explore with them both sides of the coin. the challenges as well as the gifts. And always when doing a reading or doing an assessment is to leave them with an understanding of the gifts that that particular color brings. But we need to be aware of the fact that there is polarity. There is a natural polarity within the electromagnetic frequencies of each particular color. And that polarity is in the negative and the positive aspects of it. So this is where it becomes, sort of difficult as well, where certain people will look and they only identify colors with one particular attribute. Oh, green means growth and nature, or red means fire and passion. It doesn't. It means many different things from one side of the spectrum to another. And sometimes we may find that we want to only identify with the positive aspects of something and we completely deny its polar opposite. So we live in a 3D world of duality, and it's only through embracing all of the information on both sides of the coin that we are able to ultimately transcend what is a natural polarity within everything that we experience in our particular human condition. So with red, let's sort of think about it. From a positive attribute perspective, red represents, as I've mentioned, fire, passion, vitality, fueling the physical form, enthusiasm. It's the enthusiasm to be motivated to address things in life. So whenever we are, so its polar opposite is fatigue, tiredness, lack of motivation, feeling stuck, no energy. Those would all come through on the negative side. So on the positive side, it's the ability to trust to be able to manifest what we want. So it is about the energy for manifestation. So in its challenging aspect, it would be inability or fear that we can't manifest what we need in life. So there we start addressing some of the survival issues. Um, it is love in its vibrant form. Okay, in its positive sense. So in its negative sense, it's where we have allowed the energy of anger or the emotions of anger to debase our ability to actually connect with and really feel that love. Now, let's not forget either that, I think I may have mentioned this last week, that pink is red that actually has light added to it. So it is, we bring in the light of the heart into the red, and then we start moving into the love that is contained within this. So we have a deep physical, passionate love, and then through bringing in the light of the heart, we are able to raise the essence or the energy of that physical love into a more heart-based energy. So we have two different levels of also working with the red, but we will address the rest of it through the pink. So let's see what else we have as far as the red is concerned. So it's somebody who has a natural motivation to succeed in life and a natural ability to succeed in life, for instance. So on its challenging side, you would have somebody who struggles to perceive themselves as successful or struggles to actually complete things, struggles with the energy to sort of rise above their conditions. And all of that would be because anger is a very, very powerful emotion, anger and fear. But when we actually hold anger within our body and we put a lid on it, it takes a tremendous amount of energy to hold that anger locked in, frozen, locked into our body. So you can imagine, think about the analogy of those big waves that I mentioned last week, that those big waves roll up on the shore and they've got a tremendous amount of energy. It might take a while to get them going, but they're really building up an incredible amount of energy. Now, at an emotional level where you've got anger stored in the body, what you're trying to do is you're trying to cap that. You're trying to stop those waves from rolling in. Can you imagine how much energy it it takes to stop that, to stop it in its tracks. So ultimately, when we are holding on to residual anger and to that emotion and trying to cap it, we are draining our physical being, and preventing access to a vital, really important resource to drive us forward in life. So it's really, really important that we start looking at where we may have denied ourselves the opportunity to experience anger, where we have trapped that, put a lid on it, and all of the rest of it, so that we can release, transform that energy, and make it available to animate our life. So those are some of the issues around red. I just want to go back to this particular drawing as well. We know that red is associated with the root chakra and with the lower part of the body. So with that in mind, the physical conditions that we may look at that are associated with red would revolve around the legs, the ankles, the feet, our muscular structure. Think about, sort of what color is muscle. It's a deep, deep, bright red. So red actually governs the functioning of our skeletal system. It's associated with our skeleton. It's associated as well with our muscular structure. Now, let's not also forget what is interesting is that the red blood cells, the fresh new blood cells, are produced in the bones in this part of the leg. So where we are out of balance in red, we might find ourselves anemic, for instance, that we don't have enough of the red blood cells. So it's an imbalance in this area of the body. If somebody is anemic, you would immediately look to red as being one of the colors where they are out of harmony or out of balance, not manifesting the strength, the harmonious qualities. There would probably be some work that they would need to do. So any abnormalities of the blood is associated with the color red. So we've got a powerful association with the production of blood cells. Okay, Susan, I can see that you're typing something there. Is there a question or a comment? Oh, did the screen go blank? Is it okay at the moment? Can you see it at the moment? It might just have been, it's okay, all right. It might just have been one of those internet glitches again. So far, the connection here on this side seems to be stable, so I'm working on that basis. So, sort of from a psychological perspective as well, somebody who is weak, perhaps underactive, in the red color where they need to be sort of fed with that red frequency so that it boosts their presence, may have a weaker sense of their presence in the world, a weaker sense of their own life force, the expression of that life force in the world because of the underactive red. So this manifests at multiple, sort of multiple levels. And you may find that somebody who is out of balance here is more likely to be submissive in respect of other people's physical strength or power. So where somebody exerts physical strength or power, somebody who is weak in the red or out of balance is more than likely to submit to somebody else's will as a consequence of that. Does that make sense, ladies? So you've got submissiveness or weakness. That if somebody is out of balance or weak in this color, weak with this color, the likelihood is that they would be more inclined to be submissive in the face of somebody else's exertion of physical power. So they would submit to somebody else. Where somebody who is feeling really strong, who is really connected with their own inherent strength and power through this red, is able to hold a very defined presence in the world. It's like they are walking with faith. They are walking with the absolute knowledge and understanding that they are divinely guided, divinely inspired, divinely supported. If they are overactive, yes, now you can imagine that. So you've got outbursts. If this is overactive, you've got outbursts of red, outbursts of red. Very, very likely to be, if not aggressive all the time, struggling with spontaneous outbursts of anger, like road rage. So yes, rebalancing with green, because green is going to take them into the heart, give them the ability to see their circumstances and whatever the situations are that are causing or creating the need for that aggressiveness. Once the heart is more open, they can see those circumstances from a bigger perspective, a greater perspective. Does that make sense? Yeah, you've got that you would balance with green. Okay, that's fabulous. So also, if this is out of balance, you may also find difficulties with intimate relationships, difficulties with sexuality, either repression of or almost an obsessiveness, sort of being oversexed, if you like. So an overstimulation of this root chakra. And this is very interesting because the public media and the way that advertisers and advertisements are actually structured are done with this knowledge in mind. And many, many of the adverts are done to stimulate responses in this chakra area. So they stimulate a sexual response in association with whatever product they are marketing. So it's done deliberately. And that is also why I think ultimately in our world we see an incredible amount of aggressiveness, because there's been excessive overstimulation of this particular chakra. And think about it, in fast food restaurants, you know, what do we find? We find them using orange and red in fast food restaurants. Why? So that somebody will go in there, sit down, eat quickly, get up and leave, you know, do what they need to do quickly with energy. So again, it's stimulating that lower chakra, stimulating that movement or the need for energy. Because you don't want somebody going into a McDonald's and hogging a table for like 4 hours and sitting having a casual meal. They want you to wolf that food down without even worrying or wondering what is actually in it. So you start seeing how, you know, sort of the advertising world very often manipulates people who are not aware, using the qualities of color in many, many different ways. And this becomes interesting for you to go out and, you know, sort of look at food packaging, watch advertising from a very different perspective. Notice what colors and symbols and language they are using and what is being stimulated as a consequence, because with that knowledge and awareness comes immunity to that. It's a bit of a psychic onslaught. Somebody who has doesn't have the knowledge or wisdom would be impacted more greatly by what is actually being turned out by these sort of manipulators of our consciousness or psyche, using the language and the medium of color. So if somebody had to choose red as part of a color assessment, depending on where it is actually located, but if red presented itself as an issue, what you would do is then explore the challenging aspects of what the red represents, to home in on exactly how the imbalance within the red is manifesting for them. Um, if you find that they are choosing red, now I'm not going to go into too much detail about the readings because that we're going to do in subsequent sessions, but if they're choosing red as what we might call a pathway bottle, you may find that there are some of the challenges that they're dealing with at the moment, but they're going to be more interested in the gifts that the red is actually going to bring them, which is helping them to resolve whatever the current issues are. at the moment. So you'll see how the colors work together to provide you with just a most incredible broad spectrum picture. So physically you would find circulation issues associated with red. And again, it's because of the power that is evident here. If this chakra is weak, the likelihood is that the circulation of the life force, because the blood is what is carries the life force around the body. So whenever you have a problem with circulation, you've got a problem in some way, shape or form with the blood. So poor circulation is associated with the imbalances in the root chakra. Lack of energy and drive, imbalances of the legs and feet, breaks of bones in this area is also associated with that. Sexual dysfunction, iron content of the blood. Again, we've got the composition of blood and the manufacture of blood cells. At an emotional level, you would find things like the person dealing with anger and frustration. Just generally, they're just frustrated with everything and everybody in their life, for instance. And dealing with a lot of incredible challenges, probably dealing with a lot of survival issues, which is generating a lot of stress and a lot of frustration. Um, Also, because of this overactive versus underactive chakra issue, you may find them being very impulsive. So somebody who is likely to give in to impulsive desires. Go back to what I was just saying about the advertising and the use of the color red, because red stimulates that, so you get a burst of energy from that chakra. It leads to impulsiveness and impulsive decisions. So somebody who does tend to be impulsive, that they're not in control necessarily of that energy. Somebody who craves excitement, because excitement stimulates that chakra. So they're looking for stimulation, but they're actually finding it in an inappropriate way, quite possibly in an imbalanced way. Somebody who is possessive and territorial, so somebody who is stuck, sort of represents their feet, the lower part of their body, where you place your body, where you place your being. So somebody who is exceptionally territorial and then becomes aggressive about somebody, sort of wanting to infringe on their territorial rights, for instance. Um, the potential in using this color is that one is able to access and harness a reservoir of strength, of energy, of motivation, enthusiasm to make things work. So it's reaping the rewards of harnessing and connecting with your own inner strength at a much more conscious level. So we've got the conscious versus the unconscious reactions and responses to this color, the overactive versus the underactive manifestations of the chakra governed by this color, and then we have the polarity, the positive versus the negative. So you can see how there are many, many attributes that are associated with one particular color. So do you have any particular questions on that at the moment? Hopefully you're starting to get a bit of insight of just how in depth one color can go. No questions? So you're feeling quite okay with that at the moment? Okay. All right. So what I would like you to do is to close your eyes again and just allow your body to absorb, because this color has actually been prominent on the screen. Just allow your body to absorb that information, that knowingness. Just breathe in the color red for the moment and allow yourself to experience it emotionally and physically. Almost imagine that you are breathing in the color red, feeling it, knowing it, at the deepest level. And then let it go. Okay. And allow yourself to breathe in clear light, the clarity of your highest self. Just breathe it in. See your breath sparkling with that clear light, because contained within that clear bright light is the information and understanding of all of the colors. And that light is your source. So breathe that clear light into all of the cells of your body. And on the next out breath, open your eyes and allow your being to absorb the energies of the color that is now presented to you on the screen. And this is the color that we would refer to as coral. So just breathe it in. Allow your body to resonate with that particular color. Let the frequency travel through your optic nerves, triggering those impulses within your body, triggering the innate, inherent wisdom. And then what are the words, or what are your initial associations with this color? Now I must just say, calm, isn't that lovely? Yeah, that's beautiful. It's really difficult to get the coral. Softness, contentment, beautiful. Yeah, you've got a natural connection with it. Just, keep on going with it and see if there's anything else that you connect with at the moment. Um, that coral is a combination of pink and orange, and it's sort of very difficult to get the shading right. So the actual color of this sometimes looks a little bit more pink, sometimes looks a little bit more sort of slightly orange because of the combination of colors. But you've already connected with the energy of it, which is wonderful. So you've got the calmness, sense of happiness or joy. Lovely. Yes, wonderful. It's important to do this because I think you begin to realize just how connected you are with the colors anyway and how much you do already know. Okay, so you have got that softness or contentment. Yes, and it is happiness or joy. It is calm. So it is one of the colors that can be used to calm situations, and that's because of the pink that's actually in there. And in fact, it is known, you may not be aware of this, that experiments have actually been done with certain prisons that have a high criminal element and a high level of aggression amongst some of the inmates. And what they did was they did some experimental work with colors in those particular prisons, and they painted the cells pink. And what they actually observed in terms of behavioral changes was that it did calm and reduce the levels of aggression amongst the inmates. So it certainly did have a huge impact on them. So if you look at this, one of the things that I actually see with this color when I look at it, coral is an interesting one. I always see sand. It's kind of like it is the color of of sand on a beach, that sort of almost golden, pinky orangey color, that combination of pinky orange. And you can imagine being out on the sand in wonderful weather next to the water, sort of squishing your toes in the sand. And there is a level of contentment that is often generated as a consequence of that. So many of us really enjoy being at the beach or having that experience of walking barefoot in the sand. And this is one of the reasons why, is our ability to resonate with the color of that particular environment. So it's not just the fact that it's away from the stress of our humdrum lives, it's also the fact that there is an inherent calmness and softness that is actually brought to us through that. So let's look, if somebody was gifted in this color that was expressing the harmonious qualities, what we would find is somebody who is very loving, very kind, and very supportive. It is somebody who is always there for other people. So there is a huge element of love, that softness, that love, that comfort in this color, because people who are strong in this frequency, that's what they emanate, is that love. They are always there, sort of giving, supporting, being there for other people. It's very unconditional. It's somebody who gives unconditionally to others. Sort of very much that mothering figure, if you like. Very much a humanitarian, somebody who likes to serve, and I mean that in the broadest sense. Certainly not in any derogatory sense, but in the broadest sense, it's somebody who does get a lot of joy out of being able to serve and to give to others, okay, to help to uplift. But it's also very sensitive. Somebody who is quietly self-confident, doesn't need to brag or boast about it. They just have this gentle presence. That's it. They don't need to communicate their greatness or their grandness. It is there automatically in their presence. It's a sensitivity to others, and that's how come they are able to give unconditionally, because they're very sensitive to others' needs, deserving to receive as much as they give, being able to dream big and being able to manifest. So there is a high degree of contentment that's associated with this. So let's just go back to, actually I can use this presentation. The chart here. Now, coral is a combination of the lighter form of red. So you kind of get it from this chakra, and you begin this stage of overlap into the sacral center. So you've got pink, the lighter form of red, and then you've got the overlap with orange. So you can see how coral actually, what's the word? Sort of begins to move us from that base presence and that base focus in life into what is a more people orientated focus. And that's the aspect of joy that you're picking up. The fullness of the joy is in the orange. So you've got some of that filtering down into the coral, this area of overlap. So it still physically governs the lower part of the body, but here's where you start moving from the root chakra in the blood, and you start getting into the reproductive system and the hormones. So here's that giving aspect. There is a massive correlation between the color coral and the mothering, nurturing instinct, because you've got it governing the ovaries, which is sort of very hormonal related. You've got it governing the uterus. So it's all of the production of those nurturing female hormones in this lower part of the body, okay, where you're merging those two particular colors. So you can see physically that's where it would go. So if those are the positive attributes, and you both connected with some of the uplifting positive attributes, what do you think then somebody who is out of balance in this color, that is manifesting some of the more challenging attributes, what do you think might be manifesting in their life bearing in mind what we have just, what I've just shared and what you two are connecting with. So what do you think some of the more challenging attributes would be of somebody who's struggling with this frequency? Ah, restlessness could be a good one. Yes. Sad. Yes. Absolutely. Sadness as in lack of joy. Yeah. Somebody who experiences, a restlessness possibly from a lack of nurturing, stingy. That's an interesting one. Yeah, possibly holding back, not giving of their gifts. So somebody who doesn't realize that it actually is inherent within their nature to give. So yes, you could find that as a manifestation of this the lack of um, being of service, not being able to be of service out of fear. Fear of giving because it's fear of not being able to receive back. Whereas, our challenge is to learn to be able to give unconditionally, and that is that unconditional service and that unconditional giving, and that unconditional love that comes through from the pink aspect within this color. So yes, you've got a sadness, you've got a lack of joy, somebody who is just worn out and exhausted from too much giving. They've given so much to everybody else that they have put themselves at the bottom of the pile, last in line. They're the last person that they give to themselves. So that stinginess is almost a stinginess in giving back to themselves as well. So when you've given away so much of that energy and so much of that frequency, you almost kind of feel that there's nothing left to give. There's nothing left that area or that energetic frequency almost becomes depleted, so there becomes a lockdown process where you withdraw that giving and become stingy, um, out of fear that you actually are not receiving anything back. When the big lesson to learn is you also have to be able to give to yourself, to make time for yourself. It's one of the big lessons where there is an evident imbalance in coral. Does that make sense, ladies? So following that line of thought, what else might you find manifest as a challenge with this particular color, with this frequency? Just take it a bit further. How about resentment? Because now you've got almost this martyrdom issue, somebody who could be inclined towards martyrdom because they have just given to everybody else where they haven't given back to themselves. So the energy around them is that of not being able to receive. So other people also can't give back to them because it's almost like they refuse to receive stuff. So they're out of balance in this whole giving receiving thing. Um, and they start to feel a resentment for what they are giving. So you start getting somebody who almost they have a natural inclination to give, but they're resenting what they are doing because they haven't developed the ability to give back to themselves. So it's really interesting to watch how this works. So anybody that starts manifesting martyrdom, look what I've done for you after all I've done for you, and you can't even do XYZ for me. Hear that kind of language. The minute you hear that, you know that it's a coral issue, that it's somebody who hasn't been able to actually define their own space and to be able to love themselves enough. They're so busy loving the world and everybody else that they haven't created the space to be able to love themselves. So you find hormonal imbalances. So you also find somebody who has the potential to be used and abused by others, which also then fosters and stimulates this energy of resentment. So coral in its challenge could also represent being in, whether now or in the past, abusive situations. Okay, so somebody who has lost their own sense of self and presence to such an extent in other people that they become open to abuse by other people, whether that is mental, physical, emotional, or sexual, sort of whatever that might be at whatever level. So abuse is one of those, and it is a difficult subject and it is a difficult topic, but they're open to manipulation by others because of their very gentle, sensitive nature. Okay, their gentle sensitivity. So used and abused, manifesting the poor me syndrome, becoming a victim. And once you get into that spiral, you just keep creating and generating more of the same because that is the polarity of the frequency that you are then giving out into the world, or that you are sort of manifesting through this color. Um, Somebody who feels, I think what we need to acknowledge with somebody who chooses or needs to work with this color is that, first of all, they are very sensitive individuals. Very sensitive and very intuitive, which is why they inherently understand what other people need. And they naturally want to give that. So they are very sensitive people. And because of that, the likelihood is that they've given out a hell of a lot and that they have suffered and experienced a lot of pain and disappointment and pain of being rejected as a consequence. So we need to be sensitive to the possibility and the depth of what they could be experiencing as a consequence of manifesting the imbalance. It's also important to be able to give to them the gift of coral. The gift of coral enables them to begin self-loving at a much, much deeper level. So what we will find physically manifesting when this is out of balance is hormonal imbalances. Any imbalances in the hormonal system, especially the female hormones. So you'd get sort of PMS, you'd get problem periods, you'd get all of that kind of stuff. In the males, you would actually find manifest in prostate. So you could find prostate cancer and those kind of imbalances. You would also find some influence or imbalance in the skeletal system because of the red component, the red-pink component in here. So you would have some manifestation of those skeletal issues as we talked about in red. Mood swings. Um, would you give color or balance with blue or green? Good question, Susan. So it depends on how they are manifesting it, at what level they are actually manifesting it. So what we can do is go back to the color wheel. Let's go back to the color wheel. If we look on the color wheel, here we've got coral. Okay, and here you can see it's a slightly more pinkish manifestation. So you got pink mixed with orange gives you coral, which is one of the secondary colors. What balances coral is turquoise, and there's a very, very interesting relationship there because turquoise and turquoise individuals, those who are sort of working with that, and you'll find this manifesting with coral, they're very sensitive, again, very sensitive individuals. But the sensitivity and the pain that's been experienced as a result of this causes them to put up walls around themselves. So you'd very often find, especially associated with turquoise, that somebody has actually put up walls to protect themselves. So working with turquoise as a complementary color, turquoise actually balances coral. So that's the color that you would use. Working with turquoise helps the individual to then feel safe enough to be able to let down some of the walls, to be able to feel their emotions again, to be able to feel the love that they can express for themselves. So it's somebody who has become so out of touch with their emotions and their own needs because they've tucked it all away safely behind a wall of protection. With that sensitivity, what we do as individuals, and think about children, sensitive children do this automatically. The only way that they can cope with the emotions that are going on, if there's a lot of emotional stuff and hurt and pain in their environment, is to go almost into a denial of it, or to protect themselves by putting up walls of protection, psychological and emotional walls of protection. And that's one of the things that turquoise does. Puts a wall of protection up around that. So turquoise is a great balancing color for coral. And you may want to work with both colors at the same time. Coral, because it will nourish and nurture and bring in those loving, giving qualities for the self. And turquoise, because it then helps to um, enable that sensitivity in a safe way and enable one to begin to experience life more fully and emotionally again by letting down some of the barriers. So a lot of the patterns that we see when we are doing color readings or doing color therapy have become established patterns over years and years. It's not just something that happens overnight. So turquoise is a brilliant balancing color together with coral. The two work very well together in partnership. Does that make sense? Are you okay with that? So deep fears of not being good enough. It means that some of the issues that we are talking about here with the coral, you will recognize in the turquoise. The same with all of the complementary colors. Okay, so some of the issues that we are talking about will be issues that you will find are also relevant in some way, shape, or form with that complementary color. I hope that makes sense. So individuals who are out of balance with this or who need this color to help to restore balance very often have this inherent fear of not being good enough, because they've never had themselves validated, and they've never had the confidence to validate themselves because of the sort of likelihood of abuse and moving into victim mode. They've never felt good enough about themselves, so they really need the nurturing and the strength. They've got to separate themselves from others and give themselves the time to be able to give back to themselves in order to begin to validate and feel confident about who they are. So physical exhaustion, hormonal imbalances, could be feeling bitterness too. How do you know when to give more coral or to balance with turquoise? Um, do you know what? It is actually again, it is a highly intuitive process. The one really good thing about working with them is that you can always give both colors, and they will work to harmonize each other in a very powerful way. Generally, when it comes to the color readings, because we have different levels of doing readings as well, if somebody chose or has chosen coral as a pathway bottle, what we call a pathway bottle, then I would give them coral to work with. And if I felt very strongly, if I was getting an intuitive hit, I might add the turquoise in. But generally, whatever bottle in the reading, whatever color you have chosen as the pathway bottle, is the recommended frequency that you need at this moment in time. So you can almost be sure that the pathway bottle is the one that they need right now. And that further down the line, when they've worked a little bit with that, then you can bring in the balancing color. Does that make sense? You may even find that they would go for the balancing color when you do a subsequent session. I hope that it'll make more sense when you get to doing the readings. Is that okay? Okay. So somebody who needs to learn to put themselves first for a change, and to be able to give back to themselves. So lots of sensitivity there. Are you ladies comfortable? You can find a great deal about coral on pages 37 and 38 in your workbooks. And what Penny goes through is on the first page is all of those attributes, the physical, mental, emotional, the positive and the challenging aspects of it. And on the second page, she goes into the nuances of the different tints and shades of coral through the different sets of oils and products. So we work with coral as it's manifest in the oils of transformation. So this solid color is the oil of transformation. You then get the light matrix oils, which is a very, very, very light form of coral. So the nuances that would be more prevalent if someone was working with a very, very pale or pastel color or pastel coral. And then you would also get the angelic uh, hints, which is also a pale color, which has a slightly modified frequency. I mean, for instance, in the divine oils, which is the set that Penny associates with the angelic influences, the color that the angelic or ascended master association with coral is actually Mother Mary, and you can see why, because Mother Mary is that presence or that essence that really brings a loving, nurturing, supportive frequency to the individual that may have chosen that. It's kind of like saying, this is the etheric level of mothering which will help to support you in rebalancing your own space. So it's very often somebody who hasn't had um, experience of balanced mothering energy in their development. So somebody could have actually been abused as a child. Okay, very sensitive. So you would also use this, for instance, coral, and the next color that we're going to look at, you can use in abusive situations. So let's have a look at another color. So close your eyes and allow yourself to breathe in the coral. Let it actually permeate every cell in your body. Allow yourself to understand, connect with the inherent wisdom of the frequency of coral. Just allow your body to feel that gentleness, the loving, nurturing, supportive essence of coral. As your body resonates with the inner knowing and the understanding of this frequency. Okay. And now breathe in once more that clear light, that bright, scintillating clear light of your deepest essence. Let it wash through you, the clear light of you, your highest self that contains all of the frequencies and the wisdom of the spectrum of the rainbow. And let it bring to you the clarity of knowingness and of understanding. Feel your body lifting and expanding and opening to receive the wisdom of your highest self. And Once more, now open your eyes and allow your eyes to rest on the color on the screen. And this is a powerful orange. So allow the frequency to imprint on your optic nerves. And allow your body to respond to the color. And what are your first associations with this color? Warm. Yep. Oh, there is, yeah. It looks, depending on your screen as well. Vibrance, absolutely. It may look a little bit like red. It really depends on how it's coming up on your screen. And, I've got the bottles there. Sometimes Penny's bottles, sort of do on the red side. These are all made by hand. So there's no, sort of factory manufacture with these oils of transformation either. But it's such a beautiful, uplifting color. So what else would you get with it? Ah, you felt it in the pelvis area, so it actually connected you straight away, sort of with that sacral area of the body, yeah, with the area that it governs. Good, good, that's great. Anything else? What else would you connect with this one? There's loads of stuff. So yeah, it's a very. I think what is also really good is that you're experiencing the physicality of our connection with color, which is a powerful experience. So it's beginning to understand the multiple levels and really appreciate the multiple levels at which color actually works. And that's just through looking at this on the screen. So you haven't even, sort of applied that color to the body yet. This is just drinking it in through your optic nerves and through the nervous system of your body. You're taking in that frequency. So what else would you connect with orange? Are you getting anything else at all? Nope. Okay, you're waiting for me. Okay. Well, that's great. So we know already that there's an aspect of vibrancy in it. Now, the components of orange, we go back to the color wheel. Let's just go back to the color wheel for a moment. So we know that orange is a combination of the two primaries of red and yellow. So you've got the vibrancy, the physicality, that animating force which is brought through from the red. So you can see so you've got that energizing aspect of the red carried through in the orange. And then you've got, it's kind of like being in the process of individuation, because yellow brings to us issues of identity, of self-worth and self-value and self-confidence and so on. So you've got some of that brought through in orange. So red, if you like, is the standalone color. So red is how we stand, how our presence is made manifest in the world. So I'm really discussing this at a much, much, sort of more esoteric, broader level at the moment. But this is how we stand and how we express our presence in the world, how we physically manifest, if you like. So it's really about our life force, and it's about it's a physical self. This is more about our identity, if you like, relative to the world around us. And how we develop this identity takes place a lot through this color, because orange then governs our interactions to a large extent with other people. It's our emotional body. It's our emotional development. And we develop emotionally through our interactions with other people. So there's a huge emotional component in orange. And whenever we connect with the emotionality aspect, we are connecting with issues of creativity, because creativity and that creative flow in life is emotional flow, energy that is then expressed. So it's not just a mental creativity, it is energy that is expressed. So that's why we always say, and there's always this inherent relationship between the sacral center, the sacral chakra, and creativity. So we also see this at another level, because we've got the overlap between sort of the coral, this lower area. We're still covering the female reproductive system. And this actually governs the uterus. You know, again, we've got this influencing the uterus and the ovaries, etc. And this is where we give birth. This is where we literally hold and create new life. So we've got another aspect of that creativity experienced through orange. So creativity is one of those key words that kind of connects us with orange straight away. So if somebody is having an issue or is choosing this color as a challenge or an issue, they are likely experiencing a stifling of their creative ability. They will probably feel blocked creatively. And they could find disruptions in their relationships with other people. So there's a lot of relationship stuff, a lot of creative self-expression stuff. Does that make sense so far in terms of then looking how these colors relate to each other? Good. Okay. Because it's, sometimes it's really nice to sort of look at this and go, oh, okay, yeah. Because these kind of concepts and relationships sometimes aren't explained in the general color box. And I think it's nice to understand that. So there we've got the creative aspect. So in a very positive sense, let's have a look at the positive characteristics of this. You've already got the warmth, which you picked up on, and you've got the warmth because of the heat and the vibrancy that is contributed by the red. And it is a warming color, beautiful warming color. So in the positive, you'd find there's somebody who does generate a lot of warmth towards other people, somebody who is joyful and happy and, loves people and loves having people around and has a natural affinity to be able to inject that vitality and warmth and an uplifting presence that other people experience in their environment. It's an ability to be able to connect with their creativity and to love what they do. So there's a joy, a natural joy that is experienced just in whatever they may be creating in life, whatever that might be. And let's not limit our expression or sense of creativity to just what we may see as the arts, because creativity is far more broad-reaching, as I've just mentioned. The creation of life is creativity. You're creating or putting together projects or coming up with ideas or whatever it might be. So it's the creation of life. Um, Very social, being a part of a group, and yet it is somebody in its positive expression who has a very strong sense of self, who doesn't lose themselves emotionally in other people. They are able to manage their own emotional state and manage this relationship between being independent and understanding interdependence, the fact that we need other people around. So they don't make themselves independent to the point where it's, I don't need anybody. They are independent in that they are able to manage their emotional state on their own, whilst recognizing that there are times and that there is a natural interdependence with other people, that sometimes we need support. So in the positive sense, it's somebody who feels supported in life. Okay? So they're creative, supported, deep inner wisdom and contentment because they know who they are. They express who they are. They feel comfortable expressing who they are, even in the company of other people. Learned to use discernment in many different ways. Who am I versus who am I relative to other people? They can discern their own boundaries and other people's motivations, kind of thing, because they have this inherent connection with their inner wisdom. um, so yeah, somebody who doesn't simply soak in, is not gullible, not manipulated, not able to manipulate because of their sense of self. Do and take what feels right for them as a person, and is able to let go of what they don't need. So it's a really powerful, powerful color. So bearing that in mind, what do you think the challenges might be associated with this color? So if somebody has chosen this as a challenge, or is dealing with it as a challenge, what do you think they may be experiencing or expressing or manifesting or maybe evident in their life? Unsupported, brilliant. Somebody who feels unsupported, yes. That's a very powerful one because it is almost consistent that somebody who chooses this color feels unsupported. Yeah. Unsupported because they've lost their divine connection with the creative flow of life itself, with the divine creator. They've lost that sense of interdependence. They don't feel that strength of their own presence. Feeling blocked, yes, not comfortable with crowds, perhaps wanting to withdraw from people. Absolutely. Let's just go back and have a look at the chakra chart. And that supportiveness, you would more than often find that somebody who chooses this color as a challenge has lower back issues, because this is where we feel and experience this lack of support. Okay, lower back issues, as well as the sacral area issues, because it also governs in this area of the body. Physically, we're looking at the lower digestive system, feeling blocked. So they're likely to experience things like constipation, because literally you will be blocking the movement and the flow through the digestive system. And I know somebody who was so severely blocked in this area, was in such denial of their own emotional state and their own emotional content. Again, always giving, giving, giving to others, but refusing to acknowledge their own. She developed bowel cancer. So things like bowel cancer, disruptions and imbalances within the bowels, in the lower spine, those are all associated with orange. Okay, all of them. So, as a consequence as well of this imbalance and this feeling unsupported and blocked, what this leads to is emotional payoffs in relationships. It's like, I will do something because you give me an emotional payoff, because I don't know how to deal with my own emotions and my own creative flow. So what happens is this leads to codependent relationships. So, and in codependency, what you very often find is that there is also a level of manipulation. You've got also emotional manipulation going on. And this is where we get very strongly into this area of emotional manipulation and abuse. Sort of very evident as well in the orange. And this, bear in mind the sensitivity around the word abuse, because if you ever have to use that word with people, they'll likely get extremely defensive. So I prefer to say to them, if they choose this as a challenge, are you in a situation at the moment where you are feeling that you are being either verbally or physically or mentally manipulated by somebody in your life? And I've experienced this myself. I've been through relationships and circumstances where I have experienced this. And turquoise, go back to the coral, for instance, sort of the turquoises in that were very prominent for me, turquoises and blues. and putting up walls so that I didn't have to deal with the emotions. But not dealing with them led to being able to be manipulated by what I wasn't acknowledging within myself. So it's a very interesting circumstance. So you may find, or you very likely find, that somebody who chooses this is A, not feeling supported, and B, is in a codependent relationship of some sort. So what you also find is because of this inability to work with their own emotional state, there is a natural repression of their emotions, and you also find likely addictive behaviors and addictive patterns manifesting in their life through an imbalance in this color. So you find addictions. Um, because it's an emptiness. It's somebody who just sort of can't connect with it, and it's eating disorders, for instance. You know, there's a blockage in that area that you just don't seem to be able to fill or to nurture. Um, so it's a really interesting one. Emotionally frustrated. Um, One of the things that's really important about this is that there is always an indication that somebody has been through some kind of extreme shock or trauma in their life at some stage. It could be somewhere in the past, it could be somewhere recently. But if somebody chooses the orange bottle, some of the keywords associated with this are shock and trauma, and the inability for them to assimilate the impact of that shock or trauma from an emotional perspective. So they lock themselves up, block themselves down, don't go into those emotions. Now, with Orosoma, one of the things that we actually learned, and it's quite fascinating because you can start becoming aware of this in clients where they do choose this orange color, or even just where it is a predominant color in their lives, is that when we go through a shock or trauma, it impacts our emotional body. You know, and we're talking emotional connection with orange. It impacts our emotional body in that it jolts it out of its stable position and almost jolts it to the right. So it opens up gaps on the left-hand side of the body. And we call these blowholes. You know, you can experience these gaps on the left-hand side of the body. You can literally feel the energy blowing out through blowholes somewhere on the left-hand side if somebody's experienced a shock or trauma. And what orange does is it helps in putting pieces back together again when somebody has had a shock or trauma. And it helps to seal and rebalance or bring the emotional body back into place. So somebody can become locked into, through a really severe past trauma years and years and years ago, they could become locked into a pattern where they are continually leaking from their emotional body, not able to connect with their emotional state, and continually depleted of that creative life force because of this shift and this misalignment of their emotional body field. So what orange does, in Orosoma, it's called the Humpty Dumpty bottle, and I love that expression because it's about putting Humpty Dumpty back together, putting the pieces back together again. So it's a lovely expression that you may want to just hold on to and recall. If you apply the orange oil down the left-hand side of the body whenever there is shock or trauma evident, it seals and helps to rebalance the emotional body. Now it's really interesting because if you think about our language, what do we say when we've actually had a shock or a severe emotional shock to our system? We talk about being beside ourselves. Now we can be beside ourselves with joy, which is an imbalance on the sort of like excessive side of the spectrum, or beside ourselves with trauma. You know, it's like something happened. I was just beside myself. I didn't know what to do. I had nobody to turn to. You know, you kind of hear this in the languaging. So this is this shifting of the emotional, the energetic level of the emotional body to the right that causes an misalignment. So they literally are standing beside themselves. And orange seals it and helps to bring it back into balance. So shock or trauma is something that's very, very evident. Does that give you a different level of insight? I hope so, because that was something fascinating for me with the orange that we don't usually connect with, and not everybody is familiar with it. So it is something. And one of the things that I'd recommend, and I always say this, is if you're dealing with clients, if you know that they are having an operation, so we're not just talking about emotional shock, we should be talking about physical shock. You're in an accident, your car gets jolted, you're not injured, but you have this physical jolt to your body. Your emotional body is jolted out of alignment. That's one of them. Operative procedures where there is invasive surgery is a shock or a trauma to the body. And in that case, orange is always indicated. Always use it. And you can use it if you know somebody's going in for an operation, for instance. You can use orange in preparation for the operation. And then recommend that they use it post-operatively, and it helps to hold the emotional body in place. It actually speeds up the entire healing process. And I did this once. I lived next door to somebody who had a little boy who had club feet, and this little kid was only 2 years old. I think it might even have been 18 months old at the time, but he was going in for an operation on his feet. And I gave her a bottle of orange oil, and I said, and she knew what I did, and she really trusted me. And I gave her a bottle of the orange oil, and I said, put this on Cameron down the left-hand side of the body. Yes, absolutely. It's very much indicated during childbirth too. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Susan. It's a good one. Because it does support. There is a shock to the body and a trauma to the body when someone's actually going through childbirth. You think about the stretching of the pelvis. Where did you feel this physically? You felt it in the pelvic area. So yes, well done. Yeah. Um, this little kid that I recommended it for, she took the oil, she used it before he went into operation, used it again when he came out, and even the doctor said to her, I can't believe how well Cameron has actually gone through this. It was like he wasn't bothered by it at all. It was just the most amazing recovery experience. So the doctor was amazed. So the answer is yes, you would put it down the left-hand side of the body to strengthen, and you would apply it over the sacral center. So you would do it down the left-hand side to seal any old traumas and apply it over the sacral area too, to buffer. It's almost like an emotional shock absorber. Orange is like the emotional shock absorber. So that's really what you want to do. You want to help to buffer the impacts on the body at multiple levels. So it's about balance and equilibrium. In that sense, holding yourself emotionally stable so that you're not then swung around wildly by your emotions. It's a very, very powerful color, very nourishing, very nurturing color, very uplifting color. So it's all of those things. One of the other physical aspects that you may find is because it connects with the aspect of our emotional body, is emotions connect us with the watery element. So you could find imbalances in the waterworks of the body. So you could actually find wherever somebody is suffering with cystitis, for instance, or they have consistent cystitis, take a look at orange. Have a look at who they are unconsciously, excuse the term, who they are unconsciously pissed off with. Okay? Because that impacts the bladder and it impacts the waterworks. So you've got also influences because of the sacral area influences on the reproductive parts of the body. So the reproductive system, the ovaries again, the bowel and the lower digestive system. I mentioned that blockage in respect of cancer. Spleen, pancreas, colon, kidney, hips, and lower back can all be affected. So orange is a really powerful color overall. And if you come across somebody and you're not sure what they need, At some stage during somebody's lifetime, you can be guaranteed that they have gone through some kind of shock at some level of their being. Orange is a great one to start the healing process off with. Buffer their body, give them orange to work with for a while, and then let them, sort of work with a color wheel and begin to consciously align and communicate with themselves in a different way through the language of the other colors. So there's a huge amount of information there. Are you feeling comfortable with that? You can read that in your workbooks on page 21, and then we've got the subtleties and the nuances of the other shades or tints of orange on page 22. Okay, so you can review that. You can also obviously review the video and what we've been talking about. It is worthwhile, I must say to you guys, it is worthwhile you perhaps having a little notebook handy or scribbling. I don't know if you're scribbling any comments down as we are actually going through this, but it's worth having that to just jot down a couple of notes, because I never know what's going to drop in terms of information. You scribbling. Good. Okay, so you never know. Yeah, you never know what's going to drop in terms of information that just adds to the repository of knowledge and wisdom that you already have. So well done, ladies. Okay, so we're looking at the moment at 22. So we've been going, you can review it, which is one of the nice things. So you can review all of the workshops later. In the same way as you did last week as well. Now, there's one other color here, but I'm actually feeling that I'm going to leave that for next week, that we can actually have a look at that next week. And I think we'll leave those three colors there for the moment, that you can perhaps play with them and review those three colors during the week. Review what's in your notes. Spend a little bit of time becoming familiar just with those. So you're not trying to take in too much information all at once, which is why this is really nice doing it on a rolled out basis. So what I'm going to do is send you or set you your homework for the next week. And this is fun. So there's two things that I'm going to suggest you do. I'm going to provide you with the Crystal Rainbows meditation, which is a meditation that I recorded some years ago now, and it takes you on a journey through color. And I've been surprised with myself, because sometimes I actually listen to it. And I've been amazed at how my body responds and how I react to the different colors in the process. It's a lovely journey. So I'm going to provide you with that MP3 that you can download. And I would suggest that you listen to it at least 3 to 4 times during the week and notice, as opposed to the original exercise that we did, which of the colors in this meditation that you have the greatest response to each time you do it. Is it the same color each time? Is it something that you feel in your body? Are there different colors that you respond to? What happens emotionally? And then tune into your higher self, to allow your higher self to provide you with insights as to what that color energy actually means for you. So that's a nice little exercise for you to do. It's meditative, it's relaxing. It really just helps to connect you with those frequencies in an unconscious way, in a sort of a different state of consciousness. So that's lovely. And then the second exercise is also a bit of fun. Is take an A4 sheet of blank paper, take your colored crayons, and get creating. And that's why it's nice to finish the session on the orange, because it's a bit of a creative exercise. Draw a clown. Okay, so I want you to just draw a clown. Doesn't matter how you draw it. Use whatever colors you want, and simply allow your intuitive self to actually express whatever is within you through your image of the clown. And then next week we're going to do a debriefing of the clown. And I'm going to provide you only next week with the details on how to actually interpret it. So this is interesting because it does become an exercise that you can use with your clients, that once we've gone through all of the colors, you're then able to sit with the clown and you're able to glean information in a very different way from your clients through a very light-hearted process. So if you haven't got the oils, you haven't got the colors, give them a box of crayons and a piece of paper and say, draw me a clown. And you will be able to understand a lot of what is happening with them at multiple levels through a simple drawing. So we're going to do that next week. So what I would ask you to do is you can either one of or both of you send in, if you can, scan your clown and email it to me. I will use it as an example for the debriefing next week. So we're using a pertinence clown, and I'll show you some of the other ones that we've actually had done through the other workshops. So if you can scan, please scan it and email it to me, and we can use it as a case study at the beginning of next week. So, how's that, ladies? That's almost 2 hours. You know, it's amazing where the time goes, isn't it? Hmm. And we've done 3 colors. Okay, super. So, have some fun this week. How are you going to be able to cover all the colors? Don't worry, we'll get there. There's 6 sessions. We've done 3 today. Uh, for another 4 sessions will enable us to get through the rest of the colors. And that's why you have homework during the week as well. So don't worry, we get there. I've done this quite a few times, and we get there, and you actually learn to do some beautiful color readings as well. So it's a really wonderful sharing process. So I'm going to sign off for this evening. I will send you out your MP3 a little bit later. It may take me until tomorrow, I'm not sure, to actually get the video uploaded so that you can review it. But as soon as it is, I will actually let you know. And I'll send you the details to connect next week. So I hope you've enjoyed this evening. I've enjoyed sharing it with you. And look forward to the next step of the journey next week. So have a wonderful day, evening further, ladies. And thank you for joining. And we'll connect again next week. If you've got any questions or whatever in the meantime, don't forget you can also email me. Okay, let me stop the recording.